Good morning and welcome to the Football Digest podcast. And this morning we're having a very special edition, the Transfer Deadline Day edition. Is it going to be that special though? That's what I think the question will be asking. Well, a show is always special when I'm joined by Neil Moxley, who absolutely promises not to mention that it's 10 years this month since a day of high emotion that we both shared at Wembley. Mox, you won't mind me mentioning that it was the month that Birmingham City, in that most dramatic of fashion, ended up beating Arsenal in the League Cup final. But anyway, we won't go there.
No, don't go. I mean, I really
water has passed under the bridge since then, pal.
Absolutely, mate. You know, it's not. To be honest, there's not many 5 minutes that go by that I don't remember it. To be quite frank,
it always crops up in every conversation that we ever have. I can't begin to imagine why, Mox. But there you go. But mate, seriously, we were just chatting, weren't we, before we came on, and I don't know, when you've got the most exciting deadline day deal, and I guess it is exciting in its own way, of Ben Davies of Preston going to Liverpool for about £2 million. That really sets it up, doesn't it, about the window so far. It's not one that we maybe necessarily can hype up, but possible to hype up, because I think it is where we are, isn't it? Football club's been a little bit responsible. Football's had a bit of a wake-up call, doesn't know quite where it's going next. It was different in the summer, but they're not so, I wouldn't say rash, but, they're being very, very careful now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think we both speak to people in football, and the overriding message that we're probably both getting is the fact that football's bleeding cash at the moment. There's no money coming in. There's question marks against the broadcast deals that are currently running, and obviously going to be question marks against the broadcast deals to come. So future revenue is somewhat clouded, and football clubs feel like they can't take the risk. And to be honest with you, who can blame them? As far as I'm concerned, John, they're providing a vital social function as much as anything else, because, quite frankly, a lot of us would have gone up the wall if we hadn't had football to concentrate on. I know a lot of people will say it's overkill, and I understand that. I understand that point of view, but you can always tune in and tune out when you want to, and catch up on the various highlights programs. But I think for the sports mad country that we are, it's given us something to focus on. I'm grateful for that. As nothing else. So, but yeah, football at the moment, I think it's characterised by necessity. Football clubs are doing work that they feel that they absolutely have to, with the aim of either winning something or staying in respective leagues. It's going to take a brave football club to sanction any outgoings if they've got nothing left to play for the rest of the season, and that includes Premier League merit money, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I was at West Ham yesterday to see Liverpool, and Liverpool were, I thought, back in the groove, and they are one of the ones that we're sort of talking about Ben Davies. I mean, the fans have been crying out, and understandably so, since Gomez and Van Dijk left. But if you don't know where your next TV check is coming from, I actually think that the responsible thing to do is to behave well. I mean, the clubs, I would argue, probably rightly took a lot of stick for spending over $1 billion last summer. Yeah. And I don't think that was particularly appetising even to the most, hungry football fan who wants success and wants to see their team do well. But I don't think there was a great clamour for it this time, was there, either?
No, and to be honest, John, I'm surprised that there was so much money spent last summer, or in the summer, rather, because, we were still not out of the woods with regards to the pandemic. There was no real clear visibility about, when people were going to be allowed back in stadia. I remember speaking to somebody, back in March, and they were telling me that Spurs had taken a quite prudent approach of forecasting that there wouldn't be any punters allowed back in their new stadium until the new year. That's all well and good. We're now actually past the new year, and there still aren't any punters in there. So, like you say, I'm just slightly surprised that they spent so much last summer, really, because they weren't out of the woods. But obviously, plans were in place, and perhaps they thought it would be over a bit more quickly than it would. With respect to Liverpool, the feedback I got myself personally from speaking to a contact when it kicked off with Van Dijk was that they wouldn't rush into the market. That Jurgen Klopp felt he'd got enough with Gomez and Matip to cover the situation. And obviously the two kids, Reece Williams, and the other lad whose name
Phillips.
now escapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand that why they didn't feel that they had to go into the market, but now I think he's looked at the situation and thought, I just can't. It would be remiss of me not to go into the market and do something. And to be honest with you, Ben Davies was being looked at amongst others by Brighton, I think, over 12 months ago. And there were price tags being talked about back then of £10 million plus. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a really good deal for the lad. He's got a really impressive CV in terms of serving his apprenticeship in the in the Football League, and he looks I've seen him play fleetingly, but I've not seen him in any great depth. I can't say that I have. But given that, and the pedigree and the price tag, if he stays there for a year and plays 10, 15 games, well, you might like to think that Liverpool will get some money back if Van Dijk comes back, and they put Matip signed a new contract, didn't he? So they could even make a profit on it. But for now, for the here and now, with his contract running down, to be honest with you, I just wonder why other clubs haven't had a look at him, John. For that sort of money, your own club, Arsenal have been struggling at the centre. I know they've taken Rob Holding. I know he's taken a bit of time to come through, but he seems to have his name seems to be sort of like moving onwards and upwards.
Yeah, similar deal, £2 million Bolton. It shows what can be done. Well, from what you've seen though of Ben Davies, what's he like as that player from those sort of fleeting visions that you've seen of him? Is he? He looks quite just from the pictures, and sort of he looks quite. He's a
fairly impressive physical. He's a fairly impressive physical specimen. He looks the part. And like I say, he was being scouted by Brighton, who have got a pretty incredible track record for developing, for plucking centre halves out of the Championship and turning them into something. You look at Lewis Dunk, for instance, and they've obviously nurtured Ben White quite well as well. Leeds were sorry to see him go back, weren't they? So, you look at Davies, and generally speaking, when clubs are performing well, and Preston are one of those football clubs. I know they've got a very good owner, on an even keel, and Alex Neil has got them pretty much at a level. But generally speaking, they're up against some fairly hefty payers, in terms of parachute payments and other clubs having a go in that league. And, they've more than held their own. They've been in and around the playoffs. And normally there's a reason for that. And, this lad is one of those reasons for it.
It's an interesting one. We don't see that many comparatively players jump from the Championship to or even the EFL, League One, League Two, into the Premier League. And you'd like to think that sort of kind of with money, sort of kind of in football, the merry-go-round at the moment is quite a good thing, actually, because, I think the sort of kind of the Premier League and the EFL between them has extended that window in the summer, didn't they? So you had extra time to buy from the EFL. And so kind of it's quite nice to think that basically, even though they've got them on the cheap, as we say, it might be, it's a good thing that the sort of kind of the money goes round. I guess it stays within the game, if you like, within the English game, I mean. Yeah,
I wonder if, in the long term, clubs will be forced to look internally. They certainly will do at the under 18 level because of, the new regulations surrounding Brexit. So, I think there will be a lot of cherry picking going on at the certainly at that age group as well. And you'd like to think that. The other great thing, like I say with Davies, it was interesting. His contract's only got 6 months to run. I was just surprised, really. I understand where Liverpool are and that they've done it at the end of the window because there's a necessity to do it because of the injury situation that's developed throughout January. I get that. But I'm just surprised that, say, for instance, a Wolves or who are also looking at centre half cover, weren't prepared to take a punt on him earlier in the window. It does surprise me sometimes why there's. I'm not accusing Liverpool of this at all, but in general, why there is a sudden rush. If you're part of a long-term recruitment, if you've got long-term recruitment, why you don't sort of say, well, we'll go and make an offer early doors. And we'll see where it leads. The lure of Liverpool's going to eclipse anything else out there, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. It's a great story, actually, isn't it? It is a great story.
Oh, it's great, wonderful for lad. Coming up at Fleetwood and wherever else he's been, it's just wonderful. It's just a real tale of perseverance, isn't it? And good luck to him. I hope it comes off for both parties.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But by the way, we should give a hat tip to Jordan Henderson, who was great again yesterday. what a season he's having, sort of kind of, not only playing out of position, but looking the senior partner now in centre half. I'll tell you what, if Liverpool do get themselves in the Champions again, Mo Salah can score 100 goals. I'll be voting for Jordan Henderson, because I just think
he's developing into a really impressive figure, isn't he?
Unbelievable.
On and off the pitch, I mean, were Harry Kane not to take, succumb to injury and whatever, there'd be no question about who'd be leading us, in the Euros this summer. I think he's developing into just a proper man. He seems to have got everything pretty much ordered in. He seems to have his priorities ordered. He's out there. He's saying the right things, doing the right things. There's no praise that are sort of high enough for him. I mean, I don't know whether it was true or not, but there was a line on Twitter this morning I was reading that Milner shouted over, "You better watch what you're doing, otherwise the manager will end up using you at the back, and you'll lose your place in midfield." So, I mean, I don't know whether that was true or not. But yeah, he could just cut an increasingly impressive figure. And, it's interesting, isn't it, John, when, we sit there now in the empty stadiums and all you can hear the big characters now. You couldn't before, could you? Because there was all those, but you can hear the people cajoling you. You can hear the people pointing out directions. You can hear the people directing the traffic and taking up that mantle of leadership. And Jordan Henderson does that all day long for Liverpool. He's a vital cog in that wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, just on that, I hate the squealers. It's exposed the squealers. It really has.
It has exposed the squealers.
Shockers, absolute shockers. Let's talk about some of the other transfers that you might be able to share a bit of insight on. Ainsley Martinez, a man in demand. I think it's pure and simple from what I know about this. This is a kid who did terrific for Arsenal at the back end of the season. Doesn't particularly, I don't think, in an ideal world want to leave, but purely and simply, and I admire his ambition for this. He wants games just to cement his place in the England squad for the Euros this summer. There's been quite a bit of interest, isn't there? Particularly, on your traditional beat, if you will, in the Midlands, quite apart from Southampton.
Yeah. I mean, West Brom were heavily, are heavily in for him, and and I think their pitch is, look, there's 18 games of the season to go. Come and play 18 games. That's the top and bottom of it for him. He will, yes, he's going into a relegation scrap. Yes, it's going to be pressure football. Yes, it might not be what he's used to, but he will develop in terms of his experience, and he will add valuable game time, which is what Arsenal will want for him. And I think the advantage that West Brom have got, say for example over a Southampton or potentially a Newcastle, is that they will actually give him that game time. It's pointless in going to Southampton and sitting on the bench for 2 months. It's just not. It's I just don't get it. So the only thing is that the word was that they were sort of becoming less confident at the game because Kieran Tierney's injury might be a bit worse than they first feared, and that they might be having second thoughts on the subject. So that's what that sort of the chances of West Brom or Southampton or Newcastle, whoever it was, actually getting him out on loan were receding. Not because the lad didn't want to go, but he may get a bit more of a look in at Arsenal over over the remainder of the season. So that one really is up in the air at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Listen, from what I know, I don't think he even expected to be on the bench Saturday. So Kieran Tierney trains Friday. I think he might have even had a scan Saturday morning, and then basically, Maitland-Niles, they have to put him on the bench Saturday. So it is worth, bearing that in mind. I think the reason, it's clear that Arsenal want him to go to Southampton. I mean, whether that fits in with their philosophy or not, but the misgiving there is that basically, I think they view him perhaps as fullback cover, which is the thing that he doesn't want to do. Listen, he filled in there, but basically he's done very, very well there. But basically, I think he wants a chance to show what he can do in midfield. And why would you leave one club where you're struggling to get midfield opportunities to join another club where they're basically sort of saying it's probably going to be as a fullback? It doesn't really. If it's a loan, then maybe it's it's a tricky one. I think West Brom and Newcastle perhaps fading in it. I mean, Leicester, I think have had a near ball. I can't see that one now. Can you? I don't think that's. I think Arsenal wouldn't want to go there. Maybe that's put Leicester off to look at other opportunities. Like Nathaniel Chalobah, I think is being mentioned, isn't he? I don't know whether you've heard that one.
Yeah, I've heard that one. I mean, I don't. Leicester. I mean, Leicester fans are sort of holding out hopes that they're going to. bag a big one, but I just don't. I mean, for the reasons we've discussed earlier, John, you look at the backdrop. I don't know whether you've seen Leicester's new training facility. We haven't had a look round it yet, but I mean, they've spent an absolute country fortune on it. And Brendan Rodgers was saying on Friday in his press conference that it's one of the main reasons that he's sort of like he's managed to maintain the enthusiasm levels is that instead of going into Beaver Drive where they were, which was perfectly adequate back in the day, but has been eclipsed by other training complexes, as you all well know. I mean, even Brighton's down at Lansing is absolutely
sensational, isn't it?
Magnificent.
Yeah.
But Leicester's is on a par with that, if not even, if not better. And it's given them a real fillip. But I think for the fact that they've got they're bankrolled by a company that has made a lot of money in duty-free sales at Thailand airports. And obviously, there's no international travel at the moment, or very little. They've just spent heavily on the training ground. I think even for very ambitious club, good manager, great squad. I'm just looking at it and thinking, I know they've taken a little bit of money in for Damari Gray, who's gone to Leverkusen, but I don't see it being a big hitter at the moment. Because for a number of reasons, I think it might be one that's just below that Brendan might try to bring on because. I mean, I might be wrong, but you at the moment, if Ndidi's fit, if Tielemans is fit, Maddison's dropping in there. They've got they're pretty well sourced in that central midfield area. So do you see Maitland-Niles playing on the wide? What sort of out wide one? Or
No. I think in an ideal world, he'd be sort of one of the central midfielders. I mean, I've often thought because he's got pace and he's got aggression in his game. I think that basically, I do like him as well. I think he's sort of an intelligent guy who looks up and sort of kind of, he's got good technical because he's been at Arsenal and in the England setup and system. Then I do think he's got something about his game, but I think he could either be as a 6 or perhaps when he drives forward from the 8, then I think he's got real potential. And he hasn't either let them down when he's played the wing-back role. And playing the wing-back role just means that you can join in a bit more, doesn't it, really? Yeah. I mean, in the modern game, and the fullbacks are so important. I mean, the teams that play out, I mean, the fullbacks, I would argue, see more of the ball than anyone else. But I guess if you've just been brought up as a midfielder, yes, you fill in there occasionally, but you'd want that opportunity. And just to, it might not work. And it might not, but it might be that he has to at some stage say, okay, I'm going to be at a top elite club. Then it might have to be as a sort of kind of a fullback or wing back. But I think to deny yourself even the opportunity to show how good you can be, I think would be a weird way of looking at it. And I think also it's funny that that brings us round to Chalobah as well, because there's no doubt about it. Chalobah's obviously had a serious injury, but Chalobah was in the England frame, was a player with England potential, just like Maitland-Niles. And why I think that basically Leicester, looking at them and Rodgers, is so attractive to a young player is because the way that Leicester develops players, but also the way that Rodgers coaches and develops young players, has got to leave players going, I really want to go to Leicester City. And what a fantastic, I think, advert for that football club that is. Forget yesterday's result. Who cares about that? We'll have bad days at the office. But basically, I just think long term, Leicester is a club going places, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I mean, he surprised me, Brendan. I wonder whether he was just the ultimate victory of style over substance. But there's because he's very measured in his press conferences. It's very helpful to us. But you can that's fine. But you can only really. It only takes you so far. You've got to produce where it matters out on the pitch. And I thought, I've been really impressed. You've seen hundreds of managers come and go, but he does actually back it up with some sort of substance. And there was a really interesting line in his press conference leading up to the game yesterday, where he sort of talked about the softly spoken sort of Northern Irishman, but by James Maddison alluded to it in that fantastic interview after the game, after the victory over Chelsea. He sort of said, look, you don't get in the Brendan Rodgers team if you're not prepared to work. And I thought that was a really telling quote. Anybody who goes there, their recruitment has been excellent. They lost Chilwell, didn't they, in the summer. replacing with Castagna. So, you know, and James Justin's come off and Pereira's come off and Evans was a snip at 3 million. Soyuncu looks the part. This lad Wesley Fofana, well, dear me. I mean, everybody's looking at it and saying 36 million for him. And to be honest, I was one of them. And then you watch the lad play against Manchester United and he was exemplary, Crossy. I mean, you know, he was outstanding. And for a 19, 20-year-old, you're just looking at that thinking, you know, and Brendan's got them playing the right way. It's just an attractive draw for footballers at the moment. The main problem for anybody going there is actually getting in that first 11 when they're all fit, because you know, they are a match for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you. I mean, Fofana, wow, by the way. I mean, you know, Jamie Redknapp said, I think after the analysis after the Chelsea game, he can be the best defender in the world. And I wouldn't dare disagree. He absolutely looks a superstar. Dele Alli is one that I think, you know, I mean, we're sort of almost talking about players who are not going to go, because I don't think he'll go today. I think, you know, I think that hinged yesterday and that perhaps over the weekend on Spurs getting one in, and you know the name mooted was Christian Eriksen, which I have to say I mean, listen, there's something in it. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it, but basically I just think it would have been absolutely preposterous, bearing in mind the transfer and contract wrangle they had with him going in the first place. Can you imagine Daniel Levy stumping that one out?
He would be like that, you know.
Would have physically hurt him, I think, you know. I do feel sorry for Dele, I must say. You know, I'm trying to launch my own hashtag free Dele campaign, because I just honestly think it's ridiculous. If you don't, you know, listen, if you don't fancy the player, don't stop him. Don't stop him from furthering his career. That is what I think what kills managers. I respect managers that basically saying, you're not for me, or I've got an issue with you, on you go, basically. I'll move you out the door. And Jose must have an issue with Dele, because Dele's got his faults, no doubt about that. But he was arguably England's biggest star at the 2018 World Cup. And here is a player who just cannot even get on the bench. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I just think, let him go. Let him go. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, on the face of it, neither do I. I'm just wondering whether or not it's a Jose decision to keep him back, or whether, because let's be honest, no manager wants an unhappy player knocking
No.
They just don't. And I just wonder whether or not it's been taken out of Jose's hands and there's somebody above him who's effectively sorry about that. Effectively above him and saying, you know, we're not either getting the money for him, or he's not time for, you know, or whatever the conditions aren't right for him to go. I can't get somebody in so he can go out. Whatever it is, I don't think we're being told the full story with that one. I just think there might be other, and I think your campaign, your free Dele campaign, will actually get kick-started once the window closes tonight, because what if you know, some rapprochement should happen, some olive branch should be held out, whether it comes from either Jose or whether the player himself knocks on the manager's door and said, look, you know, I'm really going to knuckle down, or Jose pulls him to one side and said, look, you know, show me you want to play. You know, he's gone on record before as saying, you know, the players, Jose saying the players picked the team for me. You know, clearly he's not seeing what he likes. You know, I'm a massive Jose Mourinho fan, but I'm just wondering whether or not, you know, the situation needs an artificial barrier drawn, because, you know, for the 4 weeks before the window, it was all about, was he going? We've had all the window sort of saying dominated by, is he going? We've had 2 months of it really, and I think it'd be better for all concerned if, you know, when tonight comes round and there's that barrier drawn across it, everybody can move on, because, you know, let's face it, Crossy, you know, in 2 months' time he might be back, and the other thing is as well, Spurs need him at the moment. They're looking, you know, Harry Kane out for a while. You know, they look like they need. You know, we did an interview with Stephen Bergwijn on Friday, and he was the line from him was, look, you know, this is, you know, I'm enjoying it, but it's in half hard going. And Spurs, have, you know, the Europa League, obviously the fruits of the final of the Carabao Cup. They're still in the FA Cup. They're fighting on 4 fronts, you know, and they need players like Dele Alli around, you know, who is, you know, an undoubted boon to them if he's fit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Any others that catch your eye? I mean, there's talk of Josh King, isn't there? Sort of,
Yeah, Josh King. I
Southampton
mean, he was
grad.
on West Ham's radar for a while, and spoke to somebody at Bournemouth, a couple of months ago, and they were adamant that they weren't going to sell him on the cheap. I.e., it was going to be an 8-figure transfer fee if they could get one. So which is a lot for a player with 6 months on his contract left. As we've just seen with Ben Davies, I'm really surprised that fee's as low as it is. Crossy, I really am.
I think it's a clause, isn't it? There's something
the clause in contract,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, otherwise, they'd have got a lot more for him even at this late stage. And I think with Josh King, yes, I think he would have helped West Ham. David Moyes is one of those who will take, returning to our conversation earlier when we were talking about taking Ben Davies from the Championship. David Moyes will have a crack at taking players out of the Championship. I know he would consider himself a Premier League player, and I know Bournemouth have only just been relegated. But when he was at Everton, he took the likes of Jagielka and Cahill and Lescott all out of the Championship, all of whom went on to serve him very well at Everton. So he has got a track record for doing it, and I'm slightly surprised he didn't go to West Ham, but Southampton, it's a good option for him. They're flying high. He's athletic, rangy, eye for goal. He will, he's going to add something to them. Definitely 100%. There's no question about that. I just wonder whether or not, it was the move. I mean, he's been linked with some fairly big clubs in the past as well, hasn't he? There's talk of United at one stage, although I think that's, probably because of the Norway link, isn't it?
Yes.
I think him and Solskjaer share the same agent, for instance, don't they? So I think that was probably people putting 2 and 2 together. But yeah, it will be definitely a fit and firing. Josh King was a handful in the Premier League for most clubs. So you can see that continuing. It's not once he gets his mojo back, and Hasenhüttl has got that Southampton side. They put their lives on the line for the manager, don't they? They run and run and run, and it's high intensity, and it's so if you can buy into that, do the work, then there's no reason why he can't flourish down there.
No, totally, completely agree with you. Well, I should have given you advance warning of this before I suddenly sling it on you. But who do you think will be the best signing or most successful signing, perhaps, of this window? What do you think?
This window, yeah, you should have given me a bit of time to think.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know whether we'd be sort of kind of, United actually spent big, haven't they? Sort of from the young lad from Atalanta. I mean, that's one for the future. Low down, kind of low deposit. I think rising to about 35 is a long way from the 47 million of last year, isn't it? For Bruno Fernandes, who was frankly the outstanding signing last January.
Yeah, I mean,
we're a long way.
The second biggest is the lad that Villa brought in, the Morgan Sanson. At 15 million now. Again, be interesting to see where he slots in, Crossy, to be honest, because I just wonder whether or not they obviously lose Ross Barkley at the end of the season. He'll go back to Chelsea. Whether or not they've taken decisive action to sort of preempt that, really. Yeah. And get somebody in who's their own, because he's come on a big contract, 4.5 years. He's from a big football club. I was seeing somewhere that the Marseille fans stormed the training ground. They weren't very happy about it when he left.
Yeah. So wasn't the biggest fee in the world, was it either? Business, typical Villa lately. They've done good business, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they've spent they have spent a lot of money. No question about that. But they are making an impression at the top end of the table. And when you've got Jack Grealish, I'm his biggest fan. He's just a wonderful, wonderful talent, and I think the one thing that the pandemic has done is basically allowed, because again we refer to the sort of cash drain like we did at the top of this piece, has allowed Villa to, with the owners that they've got behind them, very moneyed individuals, allowed them to sort of repel any sort of silly bids for Jack, and basically keep him at Villa, where he's been unbelievable. I mean, I saw, the lads on Match of the Day talking about him as a potential Footballer of the Year candidate, and he excites people, John. He excites people. You don't quite know what he's going to do. So apart from the way on his passes, he's just I've never seen anything quite like it. You know, it's at the absolute time after time after time. The weight on his passing is just incredible. And you know, I think it'd be interesting to see where Sanson fits into this little into the pattern of play that Villa have got. They do play 4-3-3. They like playing that. They can also play 4-2-3-1 now. And perhaps Sanson might be used as holding midfielder alongside Douglas Luiz, for instance. They may go again and see if they can source a real top quality number 10, or they may see Barkley as that, because, you know, every manager who's ever had him has struggled to find a position for him. So interesting one, Sanson. It'll be interesting to see how that one pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got a transfer recruitment on myself, a new coffee maker for myself. There you go. No, it'd be interesting to see, mate. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Nice to see you. And thanks for joining us this morning, Neil Moxley. The absolutely finger on the pulse across transfers. This transfer deadline day and any transfer deadline day. So I really appreciate you joining us, Mox. Thanks a lot. And I have to say, it's not going to be the most those dramatic or dynamic deadline day, but I do think that maybe football has woken up and smelt the reality. And yeah, let's see. I think it's sort of kind of a reality check and sort of grounding for a lot of clubs. And I do actually think in the grander scheme of things, maybe the fans don't even want football to be spending, you know, so much money when they haven't got it themselves. So let's see how things pan out. But maybe that will create, you know, the nice story like the Ben Davies, who I think, you know, has got potential, isn't it, to be a really kind of, you know, Roy the Rovers sort of, you know, success story. So fair play to Liverpool. Nice.
No, absolutely, absolute pleasure, mate. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, top man. Thanks ever so much, and thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
Take care, pal. Bye bye.